Hey parents, Tim Wright here along with Dr. Michael Gurian, the Wonder Parenting Podcast, a brain science approach to parenting. And as you know, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, we love talking about boys, we love talking about girls, but we do put a little bit more energy into boys because that seems to be where the energy is from our parents. We have so much information about how to raise our daughters. We don't necessarily have all the information we need on how to raise our boys. And so today we've got a very special guest with us that we'll introduce to you in a few moments, who not only knows boys, but has raised boys. And so we're going to have a chance to hear from a mom about how in the world do you raise boys, especially if you have more than one of them in the household. We're brought to you, as always, by the Army and Navy Academy. Leadership and character are built through mentorship, structure, and real-world challenges. For over 114 years, Army and Navy Academy has reached boys, or has helped boys grow into young men of integrity. As a Gurian Center for Excellence, they use a research-based approach to education, developing confidence, responsibility, and resilience. Located on the Pacific Ocean in Carlsbad, California, Army and Navy Academy provides an immersive environment where boys are challenged to lead. So give your son the tools to succeed. Visit armyandnavyacademy.org. That's armyandnavyacademy.org. So, Michael, over the last few months, we have on this podcast traveled over to London, and then we went to South Africa. And today we're going down near Sydney, Australia, one of my favorite cities in the whole world. Beautiful. And we've got a special guest with us today, and I'm going to let you introduce her to us.
Yes. So Maggie Dent is with us. She's big time. Written a number of books, and I want to make sure, Maggie, that you're going to tell people about your books and where to get them. You and I were introduced in a way, I think, because we endorsed each other's books. Yes. I think a number of years ago, we had read about each other and endorsed each other's books, and then sort of became online, I think, friends and supporters of each other. You're just doing incredible work in Australia, and you were talking before the break, you were starting to talk about Romania and so on. So that's why I said, okay, we got to put this on the podcast, because you've had a really varied background, and you were just traveling in Europe. Is that right, with your books?
Yeah.
Tell us.
Okay. So it's interesting that so I had an extensive career in teaching, co-ed high school. So obviously boys are not at their best in that window. And after I had my intensive breeding program, I had 4 boys. So I kept running into women who just kept saying, oh, look, what the hell do you do with them? I just can't, what? And so it was mainly women who'd never had brothers or who'd had a difficult relationship with a dad. I found those ones were the ones who were triggered the most to get really angry and to be, the punishment from behaviorism was the only thing they knew. And as you and I both know, that doesn't teach anything. Anyway, so when I kind of decided, I had a, moment, decided to write a book for mums. Now, what's really weird, it was in 2018, and I just thought, that'll just go around Australia, it'll be fine, because I had to self-publish because nobody wanted to help me. And I thought, well, it's important, I'll do it. But just recently coming back from Europe, it was kind of when I realized just how far that has spread. I was at a conference in Romania, and I had Romanian women coming up to me and hugging me because it's been translated in Romanian, talking to me in a language I don't know, but crying and saying, thank you. I've worked out how to love my son. And then I went to Ireland, and people had driven 4 hours to come to a seminar. And then last April, I was in Canada, and I was at the Vancouver Aquarium. And a mum reached out and grabbed my hand and said, thank you, Maggie Dent. I had these 3 boys. I didn't like them. I love them now. Oh. And so I think, there was a place for it, because I have that unique ability to decode, because I was kind of a part boy, but also my warm attachment person wasn't my mum. She was very cold and aloof. It was my dad. So I guess I spent hours with my dad because he was a farmer. And I think that helped me to see the world, through that lens as well.
Maggie, first of all, let's make sure we get the name of the book.
Right.
Mothering Our Boys. Just that's it.
Right.
It's a wonderful book.
Amazon now, and spread it everywhere. We also on my website have a ebook that's in American spelling, just in case, because sometimes
Our spelling is so weird.
Mum's got the O in it in that book.
Yeah, rather than mums, right?
Yeah.
So Maggie, just give us a little background. How old are your boys, and sort of their age range?
Yeah, no, I still can't believe it. They're all dads now, 44, 42, 40, and 36. And I couldn't, honest to goodness, I couldn't be more proud of the men they've become. And one of the things that I want to say, because as a teacher, we often get worried because our boys aren't really as engaged, and, and they often disengage, as you all know, around 10, 11, what's in this for me? This isn't, I don't want to know it. And they had high school. And I just never pushed the academics. I kept on just, let's get through. In actual fact, for the last two boys, I said the most important thing about school is playtime and lunchtime. Just have to suck up all the other stuff. And they seem to handle school better. But what's really interesting is, especially in high school, we had the option of 4 core subjects, and then you choose other things. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people try to get extra subjects to make them better at the core subjects. But I taught boys, and I just said everything you can do that gets you out of the classroom. And yet I've ended up with a lawyer, a finance guy, a radiographer, and an emergency doctor, because and they just went through government schools in Australia, because I think I had to make sure I didn't let them be destroyed by the school system, but still keep it alive inside them. That is what they had the capacity for. I mean, if they had the capacity to be, AFL players, I would have gone with that too. So we've got to find out what it is that is within them and nurture that, rather than force them to do things that just isn't a part of their being.
So when she says AFL, she's not talking about a union. She's talking about Australian rules football, one of the absolute craziest games on the planet. It's sort of a combination of football, soccer, volleyball, basketball, and 100,000 people filled these stadiums to watch these games. It's just amazing. I'm a huge fan.
Now, Tim, you mentioned basketball because I was their basketball coach.
Okay.
And in every house, I had a major backboard put up, because it was one of those things I loved it. But it was a way that often movement helped my boys talk, move big feelings, have fun, and be ridiculous and beat their mother.
Yeah. So there are so many. You and I are meeting for the first time. You and Michael know each other. I have so many questions, but let's touch base a little bit. You're talking sort of about a mom perspective. Before that, you were in education. So if I think I heard you right, you've learned more about boys after you got out of the education system, correct?
Absolutely.
So now you have this unique ability to talk to educators and to moms, parents about boys. Yeah. And how are educators in Australia responding to what you're talking about?
Well, it's interesting that when they come to my seminars, quite often they've got their parent hat on. And of course, the educator gets some tips too. But I did run professional development in schools for quite some time. And every now and then it's just this, like, even teachers have been teaching for a while, and sometimes even male teachers do not know the cognitive differences and the way that they, that they can perform better in a classroom. And so it is one of the saddest things I find in our education teacher training courses at the moment. There's not a word of mention that there may be differences in our, statistically significant number of girls and boys. Mm-hmm. And I'm fighting all the time, just the same as your system, where we push down formalized learning. We stole a year of childhood. That year of childhood, that year of 5 for boys, was so important for them to be able to come online with a lot more of the skills that our girls already had. And so, the very much I have, parents coming to me saying thank you, because I was able to give them some more time. It's not so much red shirting here is just simply, I recognize he might have been bright enough, but he's not mature enough, or he's just an Energizer bunny, and there's no way you can keep that sitting. So we all share that incredible despair, don't we? That we've stolen a year that many boys are meant to do, doing what they're developmentally wired to do, which you can't do in a formal classroom setting. And then we often get them to feel like failures because their fine motor control's not good enough to be able to colour within the lines or to print in those small lines. It's still coming online, and then they feel shame. And then that shame often can trigger into inappropriate, outward behaviour. And then they get punished because they can't do something developmentally. And that really riles my goat just a bit.
Well, you're a kindred spirit with us, and that's why we're so excited to have you on the show. So we're going to take a little break and come on back. Before we do, Maggie, what's your website?
MaggieDent.com. Yeah.
MaggieDent.com. It's close enough. And spell Maggie for us so people make sure they get that right.
MAGGIE. Yeah.
All right. Maggie
and
Dent.
200 videos on YouTube as well.
Wow. Okay. Excellent. Speaking of YouTube, folks, we're putting these on YouTube as well. You just go to YouTube, and then it's at Wonder Parenting, and you can see Maggie Dent live and in person, or at least on film, here on the Wonder Parenting Podcast. We'll be back with you in just a moment. Maggie, you said something really interesting early on, that moms come up to you and say, I didn't like my sons, but I love them now.
Yes.
Where's that coming from? Tell us, what does that mean that they didn't like their sons?
Okay, so we're wired, whatever it is, as you all both know, there's so much of our conditioning that happens in the world from everyone around us in our society, in our schools, in our homes. And so often many of those messages, have a negative slant to boys. So when I had my third boy, I had particularly only women come up to me saying, I'm so sorry, Maggie. I'm so sorry you got another boy. And then when I had my fourth son, it was even worse. And one lady even lit candles in the Catholic Church for me because she felt so sorry for me. And my 8-year-old son at the time just said to me, Mummy, why do ladies say that about us? So it was all of a sudden, it seemed to be that I had a house full of the wrong gender that could be something worthwhile. And I think that was where, we're females, and also we've got the estrogen, and we're wired to be the nurturers and the carers. And you both explore the biological drivers that still exist within us, because otherwise we wouldn't have survived from earlier times. And we were the ones that cared, right? Well, if you don't understand something, and also our other part is to keep them safe. So often the boys' impulsive kind of, crazy behavior, jumping on a sibling from the top bed, all of those things, they can see as bad behavior, and I need to shut it down. And so a lot of it was, no, don't stop that. And also they never really understood that the concentration span of our little boys is very different. And we know that's all about dopamine. And then the other thing was, they often don't listen. Girls are great at listening, and they've got great memories. I ended up with granddaughters, and I had a whole class of, wow, I've never seen that ever in my house. And so I thought, I need to help them understand the why, and this isn't a bad child. This is a child who has to actually move, and so often does not have the words to ask for what they need from you as a mother. And so often when they leap off your lap, you think, oh, they don't need those hugs and cuddles. And we all know, and we've got better research now that shows with that first 5 years, without that nurturing, that tenderness, which they would have got in traditional cultures, that is where the wound comes that can be really big later on in life. And we know that turns up everywhere. And also the shaming in the first 5 years. They're the things that I want to turn around. And one of those big ones is boys are not tough. They might have more muscles than girls, but you and I both know it's the fragility in that window. That is what I've been decoding for the last 10 years, and it's landing beautifully.
Michael, you've asked Maggie to speak at an event coming up, and it's apparent to me, and I think everybody listening, why you've asked her to be a part of the Helping Boys Thrive. So tell us, first of all, a little bit about this event, and then kind of dig in with Maggie a little bit, what it is that she's going to be focused on.
So it's a free event, thanks to the sponsorship of the Santa Fe Boys Fund. So please, everyone, sign up, because there's no cost to you. You go to helpingboysthrive.org, helpingboysthrive.org. Click the What Boys Need as Males conference. It's right there. Click it, and then you're going to see a place to sign up toward the bottom. As you're scrolling down to put your email address in there to sign up, you're going to see my photo, Maggie's photo, a number of other speakers. And if you put your cursor over everyone's photo, like Maggie's, you'll see what she's going to speak about. It was my attempt, with the help of Paul Golding and the Santa Fe Boys Fund, is sort of, for me and Gurian Institute and Gurian Foundation, kind of a legacy event. I'm trying to bring together, as many of the major people in this boys world that I could, Maggie being absolutely one of those, and John Gray, Warren Farrell, a lot of us trying to bring together to have this conference and to focus on what boys need as males. Because they're developing as males. So Maggie, of course, so honored to have you and to have you speaking at it. And last reminder to everyone, go to helpingboysthrive.org, sign up there. So you, Maggie, are doing a talk on mothering our boys, and folks are going to get to hear you. Do you want to give kind of a preview of what you're going to talk about?
Oh, absolutely. So what it is I want to explore, through the lens of boys, the difference between having, that healthy mum who gets them. So it's about changing the lens. When I change the lens with which you see boys, honest to goodness, you actually know that, going to a coffee shop while they're only 4 is probably not a good idea. They've got the attention span of a gnat, but get takeaway coffee for sure. And head to a park or go somewhere else. Like, realistically, we have to be able to take our boys to places they can manage as we gradually get better. And one of my big tips is, if I had to take my boys to somewhere that was important, we're in an assembly or a church service or something like that, I would run them like mad in a park for about 45 minutes. I'd shove a sandwich in their mouth, and I know I can get 20 minutes of beautiful behavior. But as soon as I start seeing squirming, then I know it's probably time for me to leave, because I know every now and then, that need to move, but also hangry drops in so quick, and it's like a panic. I'm going to die if I don't eat within seconds. So some of my tips to mums is always make sure I used to have dry cracker biscuits in the back of my bus. I had a bus for 4 boys, just because there were times they'd be starving even after they ate, something. The second thing I often suggest is keep a towel and spare undies and clothes in the back of your car, because there is this thing about puddles, streams, lakes. It's an adventure, right? And if we hold them back from those moments, we're denying something innately in them about that little warrior that's come to protect the world. And yes, it could be freezing, and it sounds ridiculous, but just pause and allow them to do it, because that happened to me, and I share the story in the summit. It was freezing, and I had 2 little boys, 4 and 6, and they not only went once, they went 3 times. And every mother would go, "This is stupid. You can get a cold. Why would I do it?" No, just sit back, wait till they've done it, because this is that stretching that they need to have in the world. And we just wrap the towel around them and stick them back in the car and just head on home. And I think when we realize those things, the warrior within needs to see good warriors. And it's a big message. Are we marinating in the stories of good men and good who do great things in our world, whatever that might be? Then they're not being marinated in the opposite, which is what tends to come through our media and also through our, our social media and everything else that kids are seeing.
Well, Maggie, this stuff is so, first of all, it's just fun to listen to and so refreshing. And we're going to have a chance to dig a little deeper with Maggie here in just a moment. If you're not on our Facebook page, folks, we encourage you to go there. You just go to Facebook, do a little quick search of Wonder Parenting. We'll let you in once you ask to be invited in. And I will post for you a link to Maggie's book. I will post a link to her website, and also, of course, a link to Helping Boys Thrive, so that you can get all the information on all of this. And we will be back with you in just a moment, the Wonder Parenting Podcast, with our special guest, Maggie Dent from Down Under. Do you guys like Down Under? Because we're kind of up over, aren't we?
We do. Yeah, we do.
All right. Back with you in a moment. Maggie, I have two little stories to tell you. One is just to tell you because it's an Australia story. And then the second is about my wife and son that you can comment on. So my son and I and his wife, who was pregnant at the time, were in Sydney. I was there to meet with some people from the men's shed movement, or the men's sheds. And my son and I were talking about climbing the Sydney Harbor Bridge. And we literally for an hour sat in the lobby of our hotel debating whether or not we had the courage to do it. And the concierge is just sitting there for an hour. And finally, Mike's wife said, "Why don't you two just man up and do it?" And so we did. And we did it at night. And it was one of the most wonder-filled experiences that the two of us shared. It was so beautiful looking down on the harbor and everything. The second story is, and I've shared this on the podcast before, there was a point in the relationship with my wife and our son, Mike, where I think he was, moving into the teenage years, and Mike was starting to pull away a little bit. And, Jan's response was kind of, what happened to my son? He used to cuddle all the time. And now he hates me, right? He hates me. I'm guessing a lot of moms go through that. What's happening there, and what do moms need to know about it?
Okay, the very first thing about climbing the bridge is I've done it. So possibly rather than say man up, let's just say find your courage, because I've already done it. And absolutely, and there's a couple of videos I think I put for mums of tween sons where it feels like an alien stolen your son.
Yes.
And it really does. And there's this great sense of grief, if you have been close to your son. And often they question, what have I done wrong? And this is actually incredibly important for them to step back a little, because this is the beginning of that individuation process. But also what's happened to the boy, he's probably had some of the brain changes already happening, which means he's got more forgetful, more disorganized. He's got stress because he can't work out whether, every single time he grows or his brain, the limbic brain grows, that's a change which causes stress. So they're incredibly confused, incredibly, higher levels of stress. So they just tend to shut down and pull away because they think they're the only one. And sometimes in a room of 500 boys, I would say, have any of you noticed, you left your backpack on the bus, you can't believe you did it, you've lost your phone, you got the wrong day for the maths test, and they're all nodding. And I'm going, it's not something wrong with you. It's your brain is doing some changes. And that makes you feel worse as who you are. So that challenge is that I'm pulling away because I don't want to disappoint mum. It's often the disappointment of mum, and mum's face often shows disappointment, because boys have told me, I know when my mum rolls her eyes at me or goes like, oh, I know when she does that, and I know I'm disappointing her, and it really hurts them. That's that fragility that they have emotionally. And of course, if mums don't have the tools on how do you connect when they're in that space, then it becomes they hide away, but they come back. It's around 16, you'll notice they'll start this. Every now and then you'll get a little chat or a little something, and they do come back, provided they had the secure attachment early on in their boyhood.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Now, Maggie, you talk a lot about moms raising sons, which we need to hear more of, obviously. From your perspective as a mom, what role does dad or father figure play in that setting?
Oh, it's massive. And I am I'm a part of the Fathering Project in Australia, because this is something, Dr. Bruce Robinson wrote a book years ago about dads and daughters. And one of the things he wrote was very much resonated with me, that close, warm relationship with a father for girls changes all sorts of things in their puberty. They menstruate later, have sex later, they're more grounded in themselves, and it actually helps their sense of self. So when you go, it's exactly the same in a way. Obviously, boys don't menstruate, but that relationship with one father figure is unbelievably important. And it's the work that I do around the edges. And I have a podcast, wherever you get your podcast, called The Good Enough Dad, where I've interviewed celebrity dads, because I wanted other dads to hear, we all muck up. No one gets it right, because dads can be really hard on themselves when they muck up. because it attacks that self-worth again. And I wanted it to be kind of light, where's your success moment? And then and the end of each one, and this is why there is something very deep inside, men and fathers that often gets missed because we still are treating it like we did before, like dads don't know what they're doing. And, that Australia's had the most massive shift in that space. We have dads. Originally, when I did my seminars, I'd get 1 or 2 dads that are being dragged along. Now 40% of my audience is dads, and they come willingly.
Wow.
Whenever I go to a playground on a weekend, there's no women there. They're all dads. They've got babies tied on. They've got toddlers. They have stepped up with big hearts like never before, which is something I'm incredibly proud of. And it is that space again, a significant father figure, is an anchor. It's not only that, it is that place. They're on the journey to manhood, and they do need good men on that journey. And so Steve Biddulph, who's obviously written has sold billions more books than me, he and I are allies in this space, that we really honor motherhood and fatherhood in the healthy raising of kids. But even that doesn't have to be biological. So if the kid doesn't have that in their home, where is it in our village, which we all know has disintegrated rapidly since the digital world arrived?
Yeah. So a mom who has just given birth to a boy, what do you want her to know?
I want to know he's got a very tender heart, very, very tender heart. And that even though as he's coming forward, he will, he won't have the same memory capacity as you. He can't listen to as many words as you, and he will be very fond of a certain part of his anatomy that you cannot understand. And that is all completely normal. But remember, it's a tender heart. So the more that we're able to, if it's not words and it's whatever love language he has, it's the tenderness. I want you to nurture that from the moment they're born, because you still will be able to later on in life. They will stay connected to you. They just don't believe boys are tough. Don't believe that they're, wired to just boys be boys. Because with emotional and tender coaching, not punishment, not shouting, not hitting, not shame, they can learn that we don't run up and hit a girl because we like her, right? We've got to change the stuff that was, that's because they're boys, because that drives me, that inevitability, that drives me absolutely crazy, and it's completely incorrect. And so I think sometimes it's the mums, when we change to see it through the lens of being a little boy, then they have, they've already got dads and father figures around them who kind of get it. But I think we needed mums to start to hold that tender space, because you and I both know that that is exactly what plays out, particularly in adolescence and early adulthood.
The book is called Mothering Our Boys by Maggie Dent, and you can get that on Amazon. You can also hear her through helpingboysthrive.org and the conference that Michael's putting together, and that's absolutely free with some great speakers. Maggie, you've been an absolute delight. It's been a privilege just getting to meet you today.
And I hope everyone understands my Aussie accent.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I think we did. Yeah. Yeah. And after we get off the air, I'm going to have to ask Michael what piece of anatomy it is that boys are fascinated with. So I'm thinking elbow.
It's their best friend.
So it must be the elbow. It's got to be that or the earlobe. That's all I can think of. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. Maggie, thank you so much for joining us early at 6 a.m. in the morning there. And by the way, we should say we're recording this in December. It's in the 60s here in Phoenix. Michael, what is it up in Spokane?
It's like right now it's like 38
degrees. And
Fahrenheit.
Maggie, it's over 100 degrees where you are, right? Wonderful. My goodness. Wonder of Parenting Podcast, the brain science approach to parenting. Thanks everyone for listening.
Talk to you soon, Maggie.
Bye.